with me right now is Michelle. Michelle, welcome to the virtual stage. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much for that welcome. It's wonderful to be here today.
Yes, and you made quite some bold statements up on stage, and we'll get to those in just a minute. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. So Michelle Baker, originally from Johannesburg, South Africa. I spent the formative years of my life in marketing and then computer coding.
Okay.
Then I fell into procurement, and I've been in procurement for about 23, 20. Yeah, fell into procurement. And all of that time, technology has been what I've been buying. So whilst I've ended up being a chief procurement officer, technology is my sweet spot. And I'm tremendously excited about what's happening in the technological environment right now, and really looking forward to the impact that it's going to have in what I call the future of work, what we call the future of work. But this is, as I said earlier, a generational, epochal event that's going to transform the way we work.
Well, and you, again, made a very bold statement up on stage. You said that most vendors won't be here at the turn of the century. That is a very scary remark, especially when we're going through some of the digital adoption.
Yeah.
I think about some of the people in my audience when I speak to technology vendors, and some of the questions that they have are really around, how do I pick the right vendor? And with that statement, talk to us about that. Talk to us through that, because how do you even make a decision?
That's right. It's tough. I mean, I think the thing is, it's moving so fast, and this is new technology. This is not, your ordinary standard artificial intelligence.
Right.
So a lot of the vendors that have been around for a number of years have built the wrong tech stack. So if you think about it, and maybe most of the audience is a little bit younger than I am, but if I go back to 2000 and the dot-com boom, that was the start of the internet. It didn't go very well because a lot of organizations went out with far too much capital, had an idea, couldn't execute against the idea, and disappeared. So there were a lot of early dot-com companies that aren't around any longer. The same thing's going to happen here. There's a lot of organizations that will not be able to make the change from their legacy tech stack, the tech debt that they've got from building the stack on the wrong technology.
Okay.
And migrating over to take the advantages of large language models and AI that are going to be necessary in the technology of tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of failures, and that's hard to know.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
It is a very tough pill to swallow. I mean, I think what we should be thinking about is the appification of the procurement landscape. So in the same way as you've gotten used to having lots of apps on your phone, some you use and some you edit and some you delete, we've got to start thinking about procurement technology in the next 3 years along those lines. How do you innovate quickly? How do you use a smaller set of options in terms of your tech stack? And it's not a technology selection, it should be a business selection. We should be driving that to say, what is it that my business needs, and what is out there that I can try that might help me get to that outcome, and accept that by 2030 the tech landscape is going to be a different one.
But what questions do you ask of a vendor to know whether, is there a question out there to really know whether they will be there for the long haul?
Yeah, look, as I said, it depends on their agility, the organizational agility.
Okay.
It also depends on funding. This is, large language systems are expensive to teach, expensive to run, the compute power required. If you look at OpenAI's funding, for example, they've got some pretty deep pockets. They can afford to put out these transformative technologies. Not all vendors will have the capability. So be looking at turnover, be looking at revenues, asking who their customers are. Talk to customers, talk to advisors who are currently using the product about whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
There are going to be there's going to be a lot of snake oil selling happening right now. Every marketing person is busy slapping the letters AI in the same way as 20 years ago they were slapping, the web or the web shop onto it.
Blockchain at one point, I think.
Say that again?
Blockchain, I think, at
Correct,
one point
blockchain.
too.
So there's going to be a lot of hype, and I think it's really important as a practitioner that you can discern marketing collateral from the real experience. And the best way to do that is to speak to people who are really experiencing that particular vendor's tech.
Yeah. Now, this is a live Q&A, and so we do have an audience question, so I want to go to that. Uriz says, and they are the director of procurement, does AI generate new knowledge? That's an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I'm not an AI expert from a technical perspective.
Right.
I don't believe it does.
Okay.
If you listen to my speech a little earlier, I talk about that tech stack of a pyramid, and at the above analysis, insights, data is knowledge and wisdom. And I believe knowledge and wisdom is something that human beings are better at doing. So I don't think there's new knowledge because the machine can only look backwards. It can only deal with events and text.
And take the data from what's already happened.
So it's going to synthesize. But a lot of good comes from combinatorial outcomes. So a lot of creativity is the combination of seemingly different things into something that becomes something new. I don't think it will generate new knowledge, but it'll certainly combine in a way that we as humans might not combine. And that could lead to some insights, which ultimately will lead us to better human knowledge.
Interesting. Now, is there resistance? Like, are organizations adopting AI or generative AI, or are we seeing a lot of resistance? Because I just wonder if maybe there's not enough information out there.
It's too early. So, I mean, I think there's two answers to that question. The first is, are tech vendors who have the opportunity to benefit from AI using AI? And I think ChatGPT was an existential wake-up for a lot of organizations to say, oops.
It was definitely one for me.
And it has captured their imagination. I mean, as I said, within 5 days, they had over 1 million users. That kind of uptake is unprecedented.
Unbelievable. I didn't even know those were the numbers.
It's extraordinary. It's moved so fast, and that's the pace of this acceleration. It is going to take a lot less time to become mature.
Right.
But it's not mature yet.
Okay.
The use cases aren't there. The way that we will apply those use cases in procurement have yet to come. We can imagine, as my speech did, what it might be and how it might impact us in the next short time, 3 years. But I think one of the questions we should be asking vendors is, how are you using large language models? Are you collaborating with OpenAI? Are you working with organizations that are generating large language models and ingesting large volumes of data? I don't think there's resistance. I think for business users, there's a lot of curiosity, there's a lot of confusion.
Which is good.
And as I said, there's going to be a lot of hype. So differentiating what's hype from reality is going to be tough in the next little while because a lot of existential crises are taking place and organizations don't want to lose you because they're not doing AI.
Right.
So I don't think there's resistance. I think there's going to be a huge amount of uptake. The technology is phenomenal. If you've used ChatGPT, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The fact that it can do that, the fact that we can generate images, the fact that we can generate music is extraordinary. But we are creating the prompts.
Yeah, and we've got to figure it out. I mean, I love to hear that there's curiosity.
Yeah.
Right? And I also love to hear that we are thinking about things in a very, very different way. But what you're providing to us right now is really the right questions to be asking. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing to really think about when we're thinking about, looking at a new vendor or partner, et cetera. What do you think are some of the key challenges that generative AI are really going to help solve within the industry?
I think probably, and I mentioned this, I think the earliest use case is going to be in the contract space. I think it lends itself towards taking the semi-structured data of a Word document and absorbing that and ingesting that and then repurposing the prompt that you put into a human understandable answer. So I think that's going to be a huge opportunity. I do think that quite a lot of the work that we do in the sourcing process will be taken away and the cognitive load will become lower. For those of us who don't learn how to augment our work with artificial intelligence, we're at risk. For those of us who do, it's a great opportunity.
Amazing. So what do you think the future looks like as the technology kind of grows, the industry moves forward? What should we be looking out for? What questions maybe should we be asking ourselves rather than asking our vendors?
What is it that the procurement function should be doing in 2030, I think, is a key aspect of whether you're going to have a job or not.
Right.
If you're in procurement and you are doing something today, the way that you will be doing that tomorrow or in 2030 is going to be very, very different. If you don't learn how to use that tooling, I was chatting to somebody earlier and I used the analogy of when I started work, my boss wrote longhand with a pencil. And I'm sure he died writing longhand with a pencil because he never learned how to use the PC. Never actually adopted the PC. And I think we're at the same sort of technological shift right now. There is going to be a set of tools that will emerge that aren't PCs. They aren't software. They will help us live in the same way as the App Store has helped us live with our smartphones. So the idea that we could have run our lives through COVID without smartphones and their apps is inconceivable. And yet it wouldn't have been possible 15 years ago. The way we would have experienced COVID without a smartphone would have been a very different world to what it was as a result of that emerging ecosystem of use cases. We're going to see the same thing in generative AI. My imagination is too small to imagine all the possible ways that we can use this technology.
We still don't know.
Product development, cars will change. AI doesn't know that anything is impossible. So it can generate what it thinks is something possible. It doesn't think. But it can generate impossibles. NASA is already using AI to generate product designs for spare parts on the space station, for example, and putting those into production. Because engineers are self-limiting. They've learned a book of knowledge, and they know this is never going to...
boundaries.
That's exactly right. This is never going to work, whereas AI doesn't know that it can't work. And so I think that is a fantastic opportunity. So I think the future is exciting. I don't, as I said, my imagination is too small to think of all the things that it might be. In 2007, when Steve Jobs stood on the stage and introduced the iPhone, I had no idea what the App Store would become and how important that smartphone and the App Store and its applications will become in my life. The same is going to be true of generative AI.
Awesome. Well, I have two more audience questions. So we have you started measuring the impact of AI have you seen that being done in organizations? And if yes, what are the KPIs to use?
It's too soon. It's too soon. I mean, one of the things that I would use as an analogy is how long does it take ChatGPT to generate the answer to your query? Versus how long it takes you to get a report out of, say, your ERP system. That's the differential between time, speed to market, and it's going to be those KPIs. How quickly do you get an answer, and what do you do with that answer? So those would be the sort of, direction for KPIs to take, but it's too early.
And so how would we measure success then, if we can't put KPIs to
business impact? What is the business problem that you're trying to solve? Generative AI can give you a personalized response to how you articulate that business problem. So ChatGPT, it will evolve. ChatGPT is, the first iteration. It's the Model T Ford. There will be others. There will be other large language models, and there will be other user interfaces. I think what's really important is you've got to be thinking about how do I use this new technology for the benefit of my organization. Whether the new technology is electricity or whether it's a PC, all organizations have to confront that they have a desired outcome from the technology, and either it's something that's going to give them an incremental outcome or it's not. And I think that's the assessment that you've got to make. So business impact is the first thing to be thinking about. This is not a technology problem. This is a business impact problem.
Yeah, and really discussing it internally as to where we are right now with that technology and managing expectations.
That's right.
I think that is going to be the key to how we're going to be able to make an impact through technology, especially when it's early.
It is early, and I think what we need to create is opportunities for Imagineering. And by that I mean very practical.
Did you say Imagineering?
Imagineering, yeah.
I love that.
What we've got to do is go pioneer our imaginations, and we are self-limiting. And so what I would urge, procurement leaders to do is set up bodies of advisors, and that advisor needs to have 4 generations. It needs to be the boomers and the Gen Xers all the way down to the millennials. You need to have digital natives who have never known a world without a smartphone or the internet. If you were born in the year 2000, you're 23 years old today. But then, I've had the benefit of history. It's crazy. I do think that...
wait a second.
That's right. So if you can create that panel of advisors who are actively looking at the opportunity that AI represents for your organization and are researching and thinking, then it's an act of Imagineering. Because we have to imagine the possible for it to become reality. And then you can decide whether there's a technology out there that fits.
I love that. Imagineering. That's a new term that I think I'm going to use. Thank you so much, Michelle.